What was ruined because too many people did it? Subscription everything. Especially software. I want to buy Office/AutoCAD one time and use it for a decade. I don't want to buy it every year. A lovely counterexample is DaVinci Resolve. It's a serious video editing package used on proper films, and there's a free as in beer version and a paid for version. The free version limits you to 4K timelines, presumably because if you're cutting higher resolutions then that you're making a proper film and can afford it, and doesn't have some of the fancier effects and neural engine processing that the paid for one has, but other than that there are no limitations. You can use the free one commercially for as long as you like. A license for the paid for one is about 300 quid, and also comes free with some of the hardware they produce. Once you've got your license, that's it, it'll work on all the versions up to the current one. There's nothing that explicitly says they'll never ask you to pay to upgrade, but they haven't yet. I think their business model is getting the enthusiastic amateur market using it, and the few that go on to a career in filmmaking will then just go out and buy themselves a remarkably inexpensive, £6,000 or so, digital cinema camera from BMD, and base their studio around all the control panels you can buy for it. Kind of like we'll give it away for free because we know you're going to buy it next week anyway. I haven't bought it yet, but it's on my list for early next year, because I want some of the cleanup and scaling tools that only work in studio. We had an amazing Halloween house in our small town, walking distance from my place. Every year the family who owned it would bring in Hollywood-level props and lighting and 10 or so actors in full regalia to replicate a Pirates of the Caribbean scene all around the property. The Jack Sparrow was a dead ringer for Johnny Depp. Every kid would get a bag full of real candy, not the mini Halloween stuff. Unfortunately, people started coming from other towns and it turned into a mob scene to the point that cops had to direct traffic and they shut it down. There's a house like this in southern New Jersey, but for Christmas and in the theme of Christmas vacation. The local police do help direct traffic and the owners of the home leaned into the popularity, taking donations for some charity, I can't remember which. I went a couple of years ago. When a house like that becomes overly popular, I think it could end up being a good thing. A shame it got shut down. There's a house like this directly across from me. They bring in a band that annoys the SHT out of the neighbors for 4 hours and drunk parents stumble around losing their kids in other neighbors' properties. Cops are here directing traffic for the 4 blocks surrounding. It's ridiculous, not fun anymore, nothing organized, crimes being committed including drugs and kids candy 3 years running. Way to go, community. My neighborhood used to get really into Halloween, not to the level of the Halloween house, but 80% of the houses were really decorated and we were having large garage parties and fun games for kids. Then word spread. People that didn't live in the area were showing up with trailers and RVs full of people. It ended up all being destroyed one year when people were going around and dumping all the candy bowls into pillow sacks, filling up their trailers/RVs, and running around dumping more candy bowls. The HOA, only time the HOA was useful, ended up hiring a security company and getting the police involved because people were blocking the roads. Now it's just a semi-regular event. Some people still go nuts, but nothing like it used to be. That reminds me of a late 70s movie where people who did random acts of kindness was given a bag of cash. It happened enough that there were protests in the other NYC boroughs and into NJ or CT. The news media were following people around, trying to find out who was behind the whole thing, and the ones who were rewarding good things started asking why they just couldn't be nice without everyone being appalling about it. I work as a scare actor and originally we had simple rope queue lines and 1 or 2 off-duty cops for security. There was a huge fight in one of the queues and someone sprayed pepper spray like it was Axe body spray into the air, injuring a handful of innocent bystanders. The following week after that, the owners put in waist-high chain link fencing for queues and cameras to deter idiots from doing that again. It kinda works, but you can't fully control of drunk and or super high people. Craft fairs. Now they're crowded with dozens of MLMs. I just want to find knitted slippers made by an old lady who clearly has a drinking problem, not more Norwex. One of the small towns I've lived in has an annual street fair. Used to be great as you'd have local artists and crafters, local food trucks and kids rides, and while it did bring in outside people for the day, it was predominantly locals, so you'd wander around and stop often to chat. Local politician decided to set up a booth one year, the next year the opponent did the same thing, and now one whole street of the fair is just filled with local politicians handing out flyers and trying to get people to vote for them. Really dragged down the tone of the fair. I went to an estate sale for a woman moving into assisted living. She sold Mary Kay and was selling all of her inventory, $5 for an all-you-can-fill small bag or $25 for all-you-can-fill large bag. It took up 2 whole rooms in her home. She was telling my husband how there are Mary Kay sellers who are millionaires and how she would travel to all these seminars and retreats for it, yet she was sitting on what had to be tens of thousands of dollars of product that she was selling for pennies. I'm not a big makeup person, but got a few things because it was so cheap and makeup is so expensive. Every time I see the stuff in my drawer it makes me kind of sad. Same with farmers markets. Used to be tons of actual farmers offering samples and selling fruits and vegetables out of the back of janky busted up farm trucks. Now it's dozens of hipsters and MLMs selling expensive bullshit tea, maybe one or two food stalls selling SHT marked up food, and maybe one actual farmer if you are lucky, and half the time he's just selling preserves instead of fresh fruits and vegetables. Havasupai Falls in Oz. Went back in the early 2000s and it was nice and little to no trash. Now all these FK heads have trashed the park and overcrowded it for a effing Instagram post, making wait times ungodly long. I hold great anger towards people that litter in cities, but I get enraged at dipshits that litter in parks. Like, is wrong with you people? Clean up your SHT. And for those who actually care, please bring a waste bag and we can start cleaning up after these FK sticks. Had the same thing happen with my dad. I moved to another city temporarily for a seasonal job and my dad said he'd pay for a storage locker for all my stuff while I was gone. He ended up not paying any of it and lying about it the whole time, and the unit was sold off. Finding out all the irreplaceable things you've accumulated over the years are just gone, with no way to get them back, is a horrible feeling. My condolences. My old next-door neighbor bought the contents of a storage unit and after finding nothing of any real value almost threw everything out before he found an old letter with an address. Paid a month's rent on the unit and left stuff there while he tried to see if he could find anything. He was able to find out that the original owner had died but got into contact with her kids, and for the cost of the month's rental he was able to return a lot of sentimental objects to them. Yeah, they caught on to resellers and figured they'd just cut out the middleman and make the profits themselves. So they started pricing things at reseller prices, which is kind of stupid because people go there looking for a bargain. Plus, people buying from resellers online are usually looking for that particular thing and are willing to pay more for it because of that. My local Goodwill rarely puts anything good out, and when the tiers are rolled out, which occasionally has good stuff, everyone comes attacking like wolves at dinner time. I've seen a few fights break out, once over a framed Beatles poster, second time it was a cassette player, third was a decoy book box. Good stuff rarely makes it to the shelves. What makes me crazy, in my area, is them pricing something like a record player at its original MSRP or going rate on eBay when it's clearly broken, dirty, or very cosmetically worn. There's no sense of condition. I once saw them trying to sell an incomplete KitchenAid, missing attachments, that was as is, aka busted, very used, rusted, for almost what a new one at Target was going for at the time. All these things end up at the Goodwill outlets, which, if nobody is there to buy, is its last stop before the dump. Absolutely waste. Why not price to sell? The overhead is mostly only payroll and rent, way better than traditional retail because they get all this stuff for free. Also, it's junk. Sell it at junk prices. People complain about resellers, but in our age of mass-produced garbage, at least some people are out there essentially recycling someone else's trash.